And today is all about processes documentation. And who hasn't worked with me is going to learn about this. Who has worked with me before knows how much I love this. I mean, if it's, I apply what Asana says, and I'm going to talk about Asana. If it's not in Asana, it doesn't exist for me. Tasks, messages, everything has to live in Asana for me. Otherwise, I'm not going to work on that. And also in terms of processes. If it's not documented, then I will not know how to do it correctly. I will not know how to do things. And I apply that also for whoever works with me. Clients, team, and literally for everything, even for personal life. Just a funny story, I'm going to be traveling in 3 days from today on Thursday. And I have a checklist in Asana with everything documented for what I need. The checklist for what I need to take in my suitcase, some forms that I need to fill out. I have the SOP on how to fill out the form in a very short way, but I had to do it because otherwise I'm going to get stressed. I have learned also that, and I didn't have a name for this before because it's not something very common here in Latin America, but I'm learning that I deal with anxiety for when I need to do some things that is not in my area of expertise. So I always say, oh, I'm stressed about it. No, it's not that I'm stressed. It's that I don't know how to deal with that because it's something that I don't know how to do. And there's no guide for that. I need to have a guide. That's how I think. So I need to have a guide and a step-by-step on how to do things. And this is something that I learned back in college. And now I understand it now, 15 years later, that yes, everything has to have a process. And Cecilia also knows about this. She's my sister and she's also my colleague. We both study the same career and she understands perfectly how I work. We're totally different. So she can tell how I am. So I know many of you know me. For those who know, you're here to learn how to document your processes with a simple 3-steps approach. And I use this number 3 for everything. You're going to see it in everything that I talk, because there's also research that we can handle up to 3 things. That's why everyone that has created all these philosophies on setting goals and planning your things, do 3 things maximum. If it's only 1, that's okay. But if it's more than 1, try not to be more than 3, because we can handle up to 3. And you can see it whenever you are talking with someone to different topics. To talk about topic number 1, people pay attention to you. Topic number 2, they start to lose attention because their mind will focus on something else. And number 3 is the last one. If you talk more, they're going to lose their concentration on you because it's too much to handle. So I try to keep everything simple with 3 things. If it's more than 3, I will break it down. It's not just 1. Now I'm going to teach you 2 different things, and I will probably do it in 2 different occasions. So I apply that for everything. For those who don't know me and haven't been in any of my classes before, my name is Barbara. You can call me also Barb. For my clients in the US and in Canada, they call me that way because I know it's hard for you to pronounce the R. So it's Barbara, but you can call me Barb. I'm from Venezuela. I'm a business management. It's what I studied. Now we have this trend for online business managers and certifications. That's what I studied back in college. And I worked for more than 12 to 13 years in private companies, applying everything that I do now online. I do it before, like in a real office, you can say 9 to 5, where it was 9 to never, because, you know, when you get to a certain point, you are the person of trust and you cannot leave until everyone leaves and everything is perfect and okay. That creates stress for me. That creates burnout. I gain a lot of weight. I miss so many personal things in my life, so many family meetings and all of that because of work. And I get to a point that it was March 2nd, 2015. I will never forget it because it was my wedding anniversary. I called my husband crying. I will say, I'm going to meet with you. We're going to lunch, but I'm not coming back to the office. I'm not coming back ever. And I didn't went back ever. I quit because I was tired of all of that. At that point, I start to understand, okay, why is it that business owners expect for their employees to assume that they're going to care for their business as if they're the owners, but you're not paying them that, and you're not giving them all the tools for that, and you're not giving them all the resources. So people will think different sometimes. Yeah, you need to care for the work. Yes and no, because at the end, and I realize it now as a business owner myself, I don't expect anyone that works with me to think as I think, because it's my business. It was my idea. What I need to do is put all of that into paper and share it. Okay, this is what you should be doing. This is your role. This is what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. But I need to also do my job. And that's something that I realized these past employers that I have, they were expecting me to be a mind reader, to assume, yeah, you need to know how I think. You need to know how I do things. But you're not teaching me how to do that. And that's why I'm here today. I have talked about this topic before a while, but today I'm here for that, to find a way how us as business owners can pass on that knowledge that we expect for people to assume. So we don't expect that, we don't assume that people will try to think as we think. And for anyone in their work, because I know, and I have people before joining here for this kind of classes that they are not business owners, but they want to learn because they want to improve at their role, how to, in some way, understand and gather that information to be the best on your role. Okay. And also to learn also how to set boundaries. Maybe I will not talk about it today, but this is also something I learned. When we don't know something and we are not being handed on how to do the things, on how to people expect for us to do the things, then how to set also boundaries on that and say, okay, yes, I can handle this, but I need from you this, or I need time to learn about this, because that's also important. So probably I will not talk about that topic today, but I'm more than happy if in another time, if you want me to talk about boundaries on the roles, just let me know. I can create a whole class on that as well. So, and I say this, this is my mission ever since, and it began as mine. I need to correct that because now it's ours, the entire team at My Virtual Partnr, which is my company. We want for everyone to have a system to support their life and their business. And I will always put life before business. I learned this also in July 2020, in the midst of the pandemic and everything that has happened. I follow a lot this woman, Sarah Blakely. I don't know who knows about her. She's the founder of Spanx. And I follow her husband, and like all the story, I know it's different. I cannot compare, obviously, they're in another situation in their life, but I like what they transmit about their family and about spending time with family and how it's important for that. And I joined one of their talks. They were doing it for like while we were going in the pandemic. And he said something that stuck in my mind at that point: schedule your life before scheduling your meetings, before scheduling your work. And I said at that time, wow, how I wish I knew this in 2006 when I started working, because at that time I was starting my 20s. I was 20, 21 years old, and I was having this thought that work was first. And I just remember how many things I forget from my life for putting my business first, for putting my work first. Now I'm going to, for everything, and you're going to see, this is my intention for everything that I'm going to teach. Always put your life first and then your business later. The work is going to be there. The job is going to be there. And I know that is like, yeah, but I'm afraid because I have listened it from other companies that I have worked, and the employees come, like they reach me privately and they tell me, yeah, but I'm afraid of doing this, Barbara, because I'm afraid that I'm going to then lose my job. And I say, okay, so you are working on with that mindset. You need to stop that. You need to think why you are afraid of that. Why do you fear if you automate this or if you document this? Why do you fear of losing your job? On the contrary, that's going to make you like a better person. You are going to be more successful in your role. They are going to notice that. You have to think in that way. You have to think how everything that you automate or that you create new SOPs or all of that, and you put that knowledge, that's going to make you stand out. That's not going to make you lose your job. And it's a mindset that we need to work. And that's why this is my intention. You're going to see it for everything that I do. So why, and let's start right with the topic, because I know most of you here know me. Why we why we do what we do is the question that we need to always ask before anything, before start documenting your processes and the tools that you use and all of that. And I'm going to talk about the differences between documenting a process and creating a tutorial for how to do something in Asana or how to do something in Dubsado, etc. It's two different things. And we start with this. Always ask yourself the why before. Why do you do what you do? That's going to give you the purpose for what you're going to document. To give an example, and I'm going to talk not so much on the theory because you're going to have access to this presentation also. I'm going to give you an example with my business. I deal with a lot of clients every month working on their Asana, and then I need to hand off for certain people of my team different processes. Sometimes I already have it documented, sometimes I don't, because we personalize what we're going to deliver to the client. So I need to hand it off properly. And when I'm documenting all of that, I start with a why. Why we're doing this for this client? Why it's important for this client? Why it's important also for us to deliver it in this way for the client? What is the purpose for what we're doing? This is something important because if we don't do our work with a purpose, then why are you doing it? That you have to have a purpose for that. It can be anything. It can be, yeah, I need to do it because it's my job. It's not a purpose. Like, yes, you are hired to do a job, but there has to be also a reason. And you have to connect in a way with whoever you're going to deliver this service or the product or whatever is the final work that you're going to deliver. There has to be a reason for that. So I use a lot of memes and Star Wars and anything related to Star Wars. Okay, so these are the three things I'm going to teach you. What is processes documentation about? Not just SOPs, which is standard operating procedures, and why they are so important. How to make that documentation very easily. In that part, I'm going to teach you a little bit on the technology that I use for that in different ways and how to maintain it, how you can maintain a healthy system documentation without adding complexity and stress. And on that, I'm going to give you a few tips on the technology that I use that is going to help you maintain that in the best way. So a few housekeeping rules. You can feel free to ask me questions at any time. Just raise your hand and I will open the mic. I also want it to be interactive. If at some point you want me to go back and explain something again, or you would like another example, feel free to do it. Okay, ask me questions. I mentioned at the beginning, I also have Cecilia here, who is my sister, so she can also help me. If you write on the chat, she will let me know. And I have a brand new account. Well, not so brand new. It has been for a month, but very quietly. I created Work Better with Asana. That is our online course. And you can tag me there. I would love to see you there and to see your support in that page. I also have a newsletter. I know most of you came here from my newsletter. We open it also on LinkedIn, which is a bit different because sometimes we write some articles there, so you can also see it there. And now let's start with what is the topic for today, that is processes documentation. And I will always connect it with the success of businesses and why businesses fail, because they don't create a system to support the backend operations in a seamless way to generate revenue, which is at the end the goal of any company. They need to generate revenue to hire more people or to hire more resources for their people and for their team to keep delivering the best service to their clients. I'm not going to talk on nonprofit organizations. This is something I talk in other topics. It's a bit different, but for any other company, they need to do this. And if you don't have a system that supports those operations, everything will fail. And on this, let's just recap on our vision, is for you to grow your business and to grow in your role, not just for your business, as I mentioned it at the beginning, to grow in your role, to work with ease, to feel good about yourself, to feel good about the work that you're delivering, to feel good working with your team members, to don't feel like stress or, oh, I have to do this with the people and I don't feel comfortable with that because they're not they're not supportive, or I'm the person that at the end is doing everything, to avoid all of that. That's why we need to create a system that supports not just generate revenue for the business, but for the business to give the resources for their team to grow personally and professionally. And because we love to use acronyms, we want to make ease a sense to the word ease. So we have thought of this for a while, and for us is for you to elevate your business operations, creating automations that alleviate burnout, building systems that create a space, all to increase energy so you can focus on things you enjoy. Because you have to enjoy it. And this is something that is not complicated. It's actually very simple. And this is the part that I say, it doesn't matter if you are the business owner or if you are working, regardless of the role you have in the business you're working right now. You need to plan like a CEO for whatever you do. If you are the business, or if you are the online business manager of a coach, or if you are the finance manager of a company, whatever is your role, you need to learn to plan like a CEO. So you need to have the resources and the learning from that, and then execute like a COO. This is something most people forget. They're like, yeah, I need to think like the chief executive of the company and think strategic and all of that. But then you're going to lose the most important one, that is executing the work like the chief operating officer. That is also a very important role. So you can apply that also into whatever role you have in your business. I will give examples as online business manager because it's something that not so long ago I used to do, and I have someone here that is also an online business manager, and she understands this. She knows that it's very important to align both things. And this is how you can start doing that, what business owners usually expect and assume that, yeah, you need to think like me. No, I'm not going to think like you. I'm going to think strategic. If I know the goals for the company, if I know all of this information that I need to do, I can do that. And then if I have the resources, I can execute all the work and all the operations that not that you expect for me to do, that I need to do because it's my work. That's also a word that we need to, and I'm still working on that. You're going to notice we need to stop using those words, expect and assume, because that's why we're going to continue being like in that cycle if we don't get rid of those words and use the correct terms for things. I'm going to do this because it's my role or because it's what is within my responsibilities, what is not there, then I need to learn it. And you need to give me the resources for that. So let's continue. I'm going to other places, so I'm going to focus back here. Processes documentation starts with SOPs, which is standard operating procedures. I read recently from someone that called them SOP. I don't know why, but anyway, it's standard operating procedures. This is one of the key parts of processes documentation. And I know that it sounds, people say, oh, SOPs is all this big document with procedure, purpose, why, and this and that, and all these steps. I'm going to teach you today how to do it simple, without complication. Because unless you're working with a company that has ISO certification and all of these certifications, you don't need to complicate yourself doing all these big documents that no one is going to read. And believe me, I have done this for years. And for me, I'm going to find the right word, but I feel not sad, but at the end, I used to create all these big documents, beautiful with everything, and the last time was created, and when it has to be updated, and then no one reads them. I don't feel great about that, because at the end, it's all this time that I spent, that the company invested for me to work on that. And that's what led me today, after years of working on that and studying on that, to say, okay, we need to make it simple. And I'm not the only person talking about this. We need to make simple, because at the end, we just, like, the world is going so fast, and changing, like, the way we do things will change from today to 3 months from now. So we need to make this simple, not just to document it, but also what I'm going to teach you on how to maintain this. So we have to keep this simple. And here, everything is possible with them. Nothing is possible without them. So, and I mentioned it at the beginning, if I don't have it written down how to do it, even if it's step 1, 2, and 3, I will not know how to do it, because right now my mind is another place that if it's not written down, I will not handle with that. I will probably give it to someone else. Okay, you deal with this, because I cannot do it. I don't know how to do that. So what are SOPs, or standard operating procedures, and why they are so important? And I'm just going to read very quickly what I find on Wikipedia. It's a document that consists on a set of instructions or steps on how to execute tasks. So notice how it says how to execute tasks. And I mentioned a few slides ago, plan and think like a CEO and execute as a COO. So you don't need to be a COO, a chief operating officer, to execute a task. But an SOP is going to give you the understanding on how to do that. So basically, an SOP, an standard operating procedure, is a document or a guide that will tell you that, will tell you the why and how to do things. Whether if it's how to, I don't know, could be how, and I don't want to talk on tutorials, and those are the ones I'm thinking right now, but it could be how you onboard your clients. That is an SOP you need to have documented, and it's different to every company. Okay, so those are the things you need to keep in mind, and I will teach you in a few slides. I just wanted to highlight the execute is what we need to know, how we're going to do it, and the why is for us, because for every company is different. So with SOPs, and I want to teach you the importance of this. From 2015 that we started my business, My Virtual Partnr, our business, with SOPs for everyone that we have worked with. This is just examples of things that we were able to do because we have SOPs for that. We were able to onboard more, and I think this number is outdated, more than 300 people with the very use of Asana to organize ideas and reach their company goals. Probably the people that have worked with me haven't seen it because you don't know what happens behind the scenes, but I basically have everything documented for that. how to do the training sessions. And there's an entire SOP on that, because that involves creating the slides, creating the materials, creating the videos, the scripts for the videos. So there's an SOP for all of that. How to then hand off the training materials and how to create the guides and all of that. So that's just a small part on how we get onboarded people with the use of Asana. When we were online business managers, we were handling managing emails for the director of marketing or for the CEO of a company, and that's thousands of emails, and to not just cleaning up, to understand if this important, is this not important, do they need to reply, how they're going to reply. So we created SOPs for all those companies on that, to then hand it off to the person that it was going to be at the end, their virtual assistant. Okay, so we created SOPs and roadmaps, which is also a processes documentation. That's why I say SOPs. It's just a part of documenting processes. We created roadmaps of decision. Okay, you're the virtual assistant. You're going to manage this email on a daily basis. If you receive emails from this, then this is what you do. If you receive this, then this is what you do. So we create an entire roadmap for that. So those are things that you also need to document for your role. That will help you. Like decision logs is the best and the quickest way to start documenting something. And years ago, we were planning offsite meetings for a company. That, believe me, how stressful it is. And I don't think I will ever plan an event like this. Planning events, like physical events, and in this case, with people all over the world, like someone from Philippines and someone from US, planning the travels and the hotel and the time they're going to be in the airports and this and that, like everything, and then the venue for the event and the presentations. Like, it's so stressful. From the beginning, we knew we needed to document this, because that company, like, they asked us to do this and they didn't have anything documented. They didn't even knew what would be the end goal for this. So we documented everything. And then for the first two, it was a trial and error. Then for the rest, it was so easy. And then at the end, it was easy to hand it off to someone else to do it, because it was already documented. This is everything you need to do. This is your contact list. This is all the resources you need. That's why it's important to document what we do, not just for SOPs, but for everything. So to continue refreshing on this and why it's important, if you don't know already why they're so important, everyone will know the why and how to do things to perform their tasks or a process. Everyone will help to keep the business running in autopilot. And I will say autopilot doesn't mean that it's automated, but it means that it flows. So regardless, even if you get sick and you cannot go to your work for a week, it's documented so someone else easily can take off that from your plate while you're sick, and then everything will continue flowing, because it's already documented. There are already the resources for that. And you avoid mistakes at the beginning, and mistakes will always happen. This is something that I learned from, I will never forget about this semester. It was specifically on operations. It was business management or business operations. And this teacher told us in college, you can never say that you're going to eliminate mistakes, because they will always happen. We're human beings, and there will always be some sort of mistake at any level. Okay, what you can do is to avoid them, or to decrease the amount of mistakes that you make as you execute the task, and you do so by documenting what you do. Okay, so having everything documented will help you avoid the kind of mistakes that could happen. And one of the things I'm going to teach you is how you make that happen, how you make to avoid having so many mistakes in the process. So An intervention, you're going to see it this year in all my classes. I have an intervention point because I don't want you, again, to overcomplicate this step and to keep thinking that I'm talking about creating all these big documents with all these steps or these long Loom videos of 30 minutes. I've been there, I understand that, and I know that it's difficult. I see it now as adding more complexity to documenting processes. So I don't want you to complicate on that. I want you to, for a second, to stop thinking, I need to create a Google Doc or I need to create a 30-minute Loom video for this. Don't think on that yet. Just start thinking on what is it that you need to document without thinking on the technology you're going to use, even though we're going to talk on that, but I don't want you to think on that at this point. Because this is what I have seen for companies. I try to put in a picture because I cannot obviously show, and I have seen it from Loom videos when they, like from Zoom, sorry, they walk me through their desks and their offices and their, like, everything. Yeah, this is where I have everything organized, but then, I don't know, like this person is all over the, like in the other side of the country. How do I send it? I want you to stop thinking on all of that and to think that if this is you right now and you start using, and I would like to know, please, if you start using what I'm going to teach you, let me know how it was before and how it is now. If you are like this, let me know if at the end, in 6 months from now, you are not having this mess. I have been here too, and I simplify it with Asana, as you already know, but and it's not easy, so don't worry. So SOPs will help you document and communicate those processes. Again, we're focusing today only on SOPs, but if you have questions like in processes in general, I can answer them for you. The three things that you need to consider is, first, why are you doing this process? Like the purpose. I mentioned it at the beginning. Why are you doing this? Besides of saying, and don't say to me, like, yeah, I'm doing it because it's my work. No, why are you doing this process? How does it start and when does it end? Like, what is the start point and what is the end point of this process? That's what you need to think second. This is the second step to document your processes. And the last one is the high-level steps to its completion. So you know the why, you know the how, which is going to be the start point and the end point, and then the steps in the middle. And high-level steps. I don't want you to write every little detail that happens. Why? Because if you think on the high levels, if you start thinking, okay, like the process will start here, will end here, and I have 20 steps in the middle, read it again, because probably you are mixing two different processes together. It's two different things. It has to be simple. It has to be something that you see it in one screen and you know exactly this is what I need to do. If it's longer than that, and I'm not saying this because there's a rule. This is something that I have learned from feedback from my clients. It is hard to focus on so many things, so it's better to break it down, okay? I will say an example that I know is going to be very common to a lot of people that join this class: client onboarding. Client onboarding is so complex that even for us, we have 4 SOPs for our client onboarding process because it's so many things to handle. And sometimes, like, doing it all of that at once is complicated and it creates a stress and it's exhausting. So we broke it down into 4 SOPs. It was easier. It's easier to do it because the other thing you need to think is, okay, I'm going to do this. At the end, you need to ask yourself, how much time will this take me? Is this something that I'm going to do in 2 hours? Every time I'm going to do this process? In 3 hours? This takes me a week to do it. So probably you have to read it through and see if it's okay, or if you need to break it down in order to get that done in a week, because it's a lot that you have to deal with that. Because probably you are in that documentation, you are including a follow-up process, which is a part of that, but it's a different documentation you need to do. I don't know if any of you have any questions on this, and I'm talking on client onboarding because it's something that recently I have a great feedback from a client, and we also broke their client onboarding processes like in three different SOPs because of that. Because they were saying, yeah, but I need to do this follow-up, and this takes around a week or two. And I say, okay, that is a follow-up process. That is another thing, because this, like the first part of the client onboarding, is from here to here, all these 6 steps, and that gets done. Then you need to do a follow-up. That's another thing. It's a part of your client onboarding system, but it's another thing. So those are the things I want you to think about. Start with your why. When does it end and when does it stop? What's the end process on this? And I can send you, I will send it when I send the recording for all of you to have it. A tool that I believe I have shared before with a few people, and I have it on Instagram as well, that is called the impact filter. And it helps on that. The end point is going to be the success criteria. So the start point, I use it as like the trigger. What triggers this process? Okay, this. Then what's the success criteria? That means that if this endpoint happens, that means that the process was successful. And then what, like the steps in the middle are just like, imagine it as your checklist. Okay, I have to do this, and this, and then the last point has already completed. We can say we completed this process successfully. That's what you need to think. And that's when we're doing this processes documentation, this try and error. So we make sure that is correct. So I have I'm using a different word on processes documentation. Try to finesse your operations. So do a reverse engineer of your processes. As I mentioned here, start with the end in mind. I told you here, your why, start and end point, and then the high-level steps in the middle. Start with the end point. If you are not clear when the process starts, go backwards. And this is something that I have seen reverse engineer for everything. And there's a reason for that, I think. So start with that. Start with, okay, I have to do this. There's no documentation for that. I don't know if I'm doing it correctly. So do a review of how you have done that before and start with the endpoint. When was it successful? Okay, when we did it for this client or for this specific work was successful. Okay, what was the end result? That means that that's your end point of that documentation you're going to do. And then you ask yourself, what was the result? What do you need to achieve that result? I mean, meaning what you had at that point to say, yes, we ended successfully, and what technology you use to get that result. And then from there you go backwards. Okay, this is what we achieved, this is what we use, and this was the technology we needed. So go backwards. These are all the steps we needed to take. And then this is when it should have started. That would be an easy way also if you are not clear on thinking what is the why of the process, when does it start, when does it end, and the high-level steps. So you have 2 different ways, but at the end it's the same. Those are the 3 steps you need to consider to document your processes. Any questions on this? Someone wants to ask something? Want me to repeat something? All clear? Perfect. Then develop a step-by-step process for getting the end result. What I mentioned here at the beginning. You do, like, you see a successful process backwards. Something also important, try to see one that it was successful and one when you think that, I don't want to say that you failed, but that it wasn't the end result that you expected to receive. Okay, and do the comparison. That will help you also when you're doing reverse engineer, okay? And that will give you more clarity on what are those steps you need to document in your process. Any questions on this part? Because I know this one is very tricky. Sometimes people tell me that it's difficult for them to do the comparison, but it's helpful. Doing, for example, I'm going to continue with the example of client onboarding because I know it's very important and it's something that then you can replicate to other examples. What makes a client onboarding successful is that first, your client has clarity on the timeline of the work that you're delivering, if you have a timeline for that. If the client has clarity on that, if the client has clarity where to share the information with you, and if the client has clarity on how they're going to communicate with you during the time that you're working, at least for us, that's our internal process documentation for client onboarding. That's a client onboarding process successful for us. So how we were able to identify that now, it wasn't like that at the beginning, it was a lot of trial and error, is going back to that. We compare when we work with a client so beautiful and so great, and we compare when we work with a client that either the client ghosted and never replied back to us, or we just decided to tell the clients because it happens before when we say, you know, we can no longer work with you. This is outside of our boundaries. You are asking all these things and it was not within the scope, and you are not being like we're giving you the proposal and you are not like you don't want to assume that. So like a nightmare client. So we compare those things. Okay, what happens here and what happens here? And we went backwards and build our steps for client onboarding based on that from the learnings. So from learnings, we learn a lot. On that, I can give you a tip that as you're doing your client onboarding process, you can use, I use a lot Zoom, even for myself alone when I'm doing the process. And when I'm doing meetings with clients, specifically the kickoff meetings of any project, I will ask my client to permission to record those meetings because I will be like 3 months after the project ends or 6 months after the project ends, I will go back to the initial meetings and I will see them. Okay, I made a mistake on this. I wasn't clear when I was using these words. I wasn't clear when I said this. So it helps me to, like a learning process, do that recording. Or when I'm doing something by myself, I will record myself doing it. And it's funny, hear myself doing something and I write something and I'm talking to myself, but it is useful and it's a great learning process. And it can help you with this. It can help you with your reverse engineer to document your processes. People will think now that I'm crazy because I do that and I talk to myself, but it has been really, really useful. So I mentioned from the beginning, do not think about the technology you use right now. And I also want to say, do not think about the people right now. And I'm a people person, but as you're documenting your process, do not think of people. Think on the steps and think on the process. That's also very important. 2 weeks ago, I started working with a client to help them build the an improvement on the workflow for they work with design and the different designs, digital and physical, and all these freelancers and all of that. And then when I send them, okay, you need to fill out this form to build to see how is your workflow right now, so I can identify the gaps. And then he asked me, okay, but where do I put the name of the person that does this task? And I will say, no, I don't need to know that now. I need to know how is the process you have at this moment so that I understand it. And then it was so difficult for him to fill out that I said, okay, let's jump into a Zoom call and walk me through the process. Imagine that I'm a new designer, you're hiring, and then you're onboarding me on that, on what I need to do. It was so hard because this person was so into, okay, but this is the person that does this and this. I'm like, no, that's the problem. And that's why it's so hard for you to onboard new designers. Don't think on the people, think on the process, meaning the end result. What is the end result for what the designers are going to do? That's why it's important for you to know when does it start and when does it end, besides the why. Okay? So what is the end point? What do I need to do as a designer? And that's what you are going to onboard me with. Then we're going to see, okay, for this, I need the help for this role or this role, etc. And that is okay. But first I need to know when does it end my process and when does it start? What do I need to do? What do I need to deliver? Okay, so always think on systems and processes and not on people. The people is that, and again, I'm a people person and I love working with teams, but you need to be clear on what you're going to deliver to them. And then you will put a face to the people that will execute the process. I know it may sound confusing. I don't know if someone wants to ask me a question on that to give more examples, but I think the example of the designer recently was really clear because this person was dealing with that, was dealing with so many changes internally with designers. He basically told me, I have hired 10 designers in the last 3 weeks. And they do one thing and then they left because they say that it's too complicated and it's not that complicated. I will say, yeah, but you are doing their onboarding process complicated. So imagine if you are onboarding someone and it's already complicated what you're trying to teach, when it's not really that complicated. They will imagine all this big mess as they start working. So you need to be clear on that part. For me, onboarding, client, team, it's like so key, and it needs to be so clear for the rest to work well. I don't know about you, but for me it's so clear. I can give another real example because I have Cecilia here. Cecilia has worked with us with a few clients doing their processes documentation, and I don't know, Cecilia, if you want to share something from your experience, how it was, how we onboard you. Yeah, I will give you a few seconds the mic. I basically, and she's my sister, and at that point, she was not. You are Cecilia, who I'm hiring to do this job, and I gave her a clear SOP for what we needed to deliver. And in the SOP was very clear the end result. This is the end result that our client needs. And it was so clear, the videos, everything. I don't know, I would prefer for her to work on that experience. You can open your mic.
Yeah, can you hear me? I don't know where I left my headsets. Yeah, okay. So yeah, I think this is a very good idea about reverse engineering. And yeah, you're very clear about that. When I was working with you, you gave me really good instructions. And I believe that happened because you already have some experience with your clients and you already have been through that. Right now, I have an experience with a client. He's moving from solopreneur to a boutique agency. And when he hired me, he didn't exactly know what I should be doing. So I started to develop some skeleton of how the operation could look like. But right now, what we're facing is that actually we need to wait for him to have a few clients so I can do the reverse engineering. Now I see it because I create this structure and now he's working with a team in the back end. They are doing the sales part, and I believe I will have to wait until he has enough clients or he has like a good idea of how he wants to have the onboarding, how he wants to have the end process for these clients until I actually start creating processes, because otherwise it will be just my idea of how the operation will look like.
Yeah, exactly. And this also goes with and notice that I'm not talking on automation right now. And I'm someone that I love automation, but I will say stop right now thinking on automating anything if you are still with a process that is not clear how it should work. like try to keep the like think on that, but keep it aside. Leave it in a Google Doc there waiting. So until you have a good number and a good experience and you feel okay automating something. My client onboarding process is not automated yet. And I'm working on this since 2015. There's a part that is not that it's automated. I have it with Obsaro, so I receive that's where I have automations. I receive certain notifications for me to continue with the next step. But I want to make sure that it's okay, that it's clear, because I include personalization in whatever I send, in my emails, and sometimes I want to tweak something or I need to add something new for the client. So you can have a process and it doesn't even need to be automated to be a very good process. So I don't want you to think on automations either at this point, okay? They're great, I love them, but sometimes they're not so great, okay? So keep in mind that this is just a first outline if you are starting with something, or if you have been already working with a process and you are dealing with that, you are not sure that is clear, thinking in that way, that you are drafting a document, okay? It doesn't have to be perfect. You can absolutely improve it, and believe me, in 6 months from now, it's going to be completely different. Or in a year from now, it's going to be different. You need to feel also comfortable with changes, with knowing that at some point, you need to refresh that. And because there will always be areas of improvement. For me, if a process never changes, it tends to be also boring. I need to have something that creates hype and lifts me off and that I get excited as I'm doing it. And if it's always the same, it becomes a routine. And that's why we are not like, I have to do this, like it gets boring. So we always need to find, like, that's how we get motivated, thinking on the process. And on that, I will teach you how when we go into maintaining, you're going to be, that is also a fun thing to do. I don't know about you, but for me, it's so fun to do this. Notice how I get all glow because I really love working on that. So I miss an A here. So nothing says is set of stone. However, you're committing, you're committing to document your process. It's a commitment with yourself. Try to see it as like, if I improve my process, I improve myself. I am learning also things as I'm improving my process, because part of process improvement is research. And when doing research, we are learning new things. We are learning from other companies or from someone else to improve ourselves too. It's not just the process that we're doing. You're also learning new things. So let's go into the fun part, at least for me, documenting it with Asana. So a few are already familiar with this, some of you may not, but you're going to see it eventually soon. This is how I do it with Asana. I don't just use Asana as like a project management. I also have it as a library where I have processes documented, guides, checklists, templates, form, everything will live there. For me, there's a purpose for that, because Asana, very similar to other tools. I just happen to use Asana because I love it more than ClickUp or Monday, but I have done this also in these other tools as well. Like, it has this search bar, which is really useful when we want to find things. And because I use Asana on my desktop, I don't use it in my Explorer. It's easy if I don't have to go anywhere else to find things, okay? So how you can start doing this, create a project to be the central hub for your documentation, share it with your team members. It has to be, for me, there has to be also, like, we need to share the knowledge. Don't keep it private to yourself unless it's like probably for, and I have taken this approach for other companies, for finance and legal. I understand that there's privacy on that. So probably that's like a private system documentation library, but for the rest, keep it public. Because again, and I will mention I will ask you a question that I will always ask in a few seconds. What will happen if you get sick? And for example, this client 2 months ago, she wasn't even able to speak because it was hard for her. So what happens if you get sick and you cannot speak? How do you hand off something if you don't have it documented? Or if you don't have it, you probably have it documented, but it's private, and you don't have the energy to sit on your computer and share it with your team members. So keep it there, keep it public, so that if something happens to you, I don't wish anything to happen to any of you, just to clarify, but that someone else from the team is able to hand off that from your plate and continue working on that. That's why we say to keep the work, like the business, running in autopilot. We can always support as a team if it's documented in a public library. Quick checklist that we're going to now jump into that. Make a list of tasks. Start thinking small right now that you perform on a daily basis in your role right now. Make a list on that, and it doesn't have to be too long. Start with what you're doing today. What were the things that you did today? And create a list on that. Then create the folders for each category. If you go back to how it looks here in Asana, if you are familiar with Asana, you know these are sections. So I use the sections for this kind of projects as folders, okay? So for this systems documentation library, the sections are the folder. I have a folder for new processes to document. This is where I list the new processes that I need to document. Text settings. Notice that I have technology aside, and I mentioned at the beginning, technology tutorials are different. Reference links, I have a folder for that. Sometimes I want to have certain links very easy to access, like my personal Zoom meeting link, like this kind of meetings link, the link for someone to schedule a support call with me, or the link to access to our payment links. All of those are there in reference links. Templates, scan email scripts, swipe files, those kind of templates, they're in another folder. SOPs instructions itself, they live here. And if I have any workflows or automation documentation, there's also a folder for that. And the reason that I create a folder for this is because sometimes I have something on my Google Drive, on Google Doc, or slides. I will not say spreadsheets because I haven't used spreadsheets in a while, but I want to make sure that even if I'm not in Asana, but I'm working on Google Drive, it's easy for me to understand where to find things. So I use Google Drive and Asana as mirrors. So besides of having a systems library in Asana, I have it also on Google Drive in the same way. If I have to save something on Google Drive, it will be easy for me to connect what it's related to. A difference to having it all over the places with no organization. You can see that I'm like really structured, as I mentioned at the beginning, okay? And then every time you perform this task, document it. So again, start small. Start with today. What were even if you do just one thing today, what is it that you did today? And use those 3 steps that I mentioned at the beginning. Why do you do it? What was the start point? What was the end point? And then the high-level steps. If you do 2 things today, then those are 2 processes you need to document. That's how you can start documenting things without complicating it. As you start doing it, even if you document, and again, don't set high goals on this, just try to focus on documenting at least one thing a week. This is how you can start maintaining your processes updated in a way that you don't add, oh, I need to document processes, and this is a project that will take me all these months to do all of this. No, start small. Start small with what you do every day. Why Asana? I show you that. I think I took a step already on this. Is besides of being a task and work management tool, allow us to be clear about our work and our team. If I have a systems documentation library that is public, everyone will know how to do something. And maybe I am doing something today that another team member does also, that like they do a similar task and they don't know how to do it. And they're brand new to the team. So for other companies, we have created processes for the onboarding of these new hires. And we identify someone that is going to be their buddy, which is different to their manager. The manager is going to tell you, okay, these are the goals for your role. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to deliver to me, etc. But the buddy is going to be that person that is going to, and especially because right now most everyone works remotely, so it's hard. You don't have that companion in your office. So that will be like your companion in your virtual office. And the person will tell you, oh, you're doing this and you're having struggle with this. So take a look at this process that I documented that it might help you do it better, okay? So that's why I do it inside Asana, because it's easy to also share it with someone else in our team that probably is brand new to that role and they don't have clarity on how to do certain things, and you have already documented and done trial and error and all of that, so it's easy to share it. So let's start with what I just show you here, this checklist. Let's see how that looks. Make a list of all the tasks that you perform in your business and group them by area. This is an example a few months ago, something that I did for another client. I made this for them. Okay, from what we're working, these are some processes you need to start documenting. You don't have them documented. And I just make a quick list. Those are going to be like tasks in Asana. Remember that everything is projects and tasks in Asana. But for the purpose of this, it's just a list of processes that needs to be documented. Then create folders for each category for this specific client to make it easy for them to understand what is related to, because there's like this system for work management and then for project management and then for communication. So we created for them these categories. And then inside work management, they have two processes that they need to document. Inside naming conventions, there's a process for that because they needed to have an SOP on naming conventions. For project, they work with design, with videos they need to edit. So there has to be an order on that. And to have an order on that, there has to be an SOP for that. For project management, because they will handle thousands of clients and they will have all this amount of project managers with business analysts. So we needed to create an SOP for how you're going to manage all your client projects, then communication, and so on. So all those SOPs that needed to be documented, we created like a major category for that. This also makes the work of maintaining the SOPs easier. And then every time you perform a task, document it. Now I'm going to give you some tips on technology. This, you're seeing here an example, and you can feel free to take a screenshot. I will send you also this. I have been using for a year now a tool that is called Text Expander. It's free, by the way. You don't have to pay for this, and I know that for some people this is really good. It works like I use it with my keyboard. So whenever I'm in Asana or I'm in a Google Doc, because sometimes clients, they don't have Asana, they create like their Bible on Google Doc with all the SOPs. I write basically, as you see here, that SOP, and it will paste all of this information. I will record a video just on that and I will send it to you. I write that SOP and it will paste this structure. So I know exactly those steps that I told you at the beginning, the 3 steps, like your why, the start at the end, and the high-level steps, is this. So the why is the purpose of the SOP that I need to write. The procedure is like, when does it start? The end is the success criteria. And then the high-level steps is what goes here. So it's very easy for me I just write that SOP and it takes everything. So this is a technology tip that you can take. You can even feel free to write this down and start using it from your side. I will make sure that I add a Loom video on how to get this done with Text Expander. It is really useful. And I'm just giving you an example for SOP. I use it for some canned emails and things like that. It saves me a lot of time. The other one that I use, and I will tell you the differences, I use also Loom a lot and Scribe How, but I started to use them in a different way. A year ago, I was using Loom for everything. Like I needed to do an SOP and I will do a Loom video. But then Asana, like they're now, I don't know, fast forwarding all their products updates, and that affects a few SOPs. That means that I had to do all over again a 15-minute videos from Loom. That is not just the 15 minutes. For doing even a 5 minutes video on Loom, there's a lot that happens behind. I do a script so I make sure that I don't miss anything. I have to make sure that I have everything organized to do the video. There's a lot behind a 5-minute video on Loom or 10 minutes video on Loom. So it was a lot of rework that it wasn't making any sense. Even though Loom has improved and now you can trim the videos and get a new video, it's still complicated because you have to go through the video to see what is the part that you need to cut because it's no longer updated in the SOP. So this tool, and I at the end, I can find some examples of guides that I have created. It is useful because it basically takes you a screenshot of what you're doing. So I basically click on, and I shared recently on the Facebook group, if you are in the Facebook group, an example on how I document a process live just last week on Friday. Okay, I basically click record and I go and do whatever I do. I don't have to speak because it's just screen captures, and it will take and write what I'm doing. So if I click on something, it will say click and whatever I'm clicking. And if I'm writing something, it will say type and whatever I'm writing. So at the end, I will just clean it up a little bit, make sure that it's organized. And there I have a process documented when it's the case that I need to add visuals. And if at some point I need to update something, I just go right to that step and record it again, like the new captures that I need to take. So I don't have to go through the entire video to identify what I need to update. So I use this when it's something that I can basically write and I don't need visuals. I use it a lot because most of the times we don't need to add visuals. This is also something that I want to add for you. Try not to assume, oh, this person might need to know how to do this, because if you are thinking on that, then that's something else you need to document. And that's why I told you there's a difference between a process documentation, an SOP, and a how-to in Asana or how-to on Google. Those are tech tutorials. And before you do any of those, try to take 1 or 2 minutes to go into Google to see if you can find something like that. Because probably you're going to find it, and it's going to be better to take that video and share it with the person. Okay, here you have how to create a newsletter on MailChimp. You don't have to take the time to do that because it's already there. That's also, and Cecilia knows this, we have this philosophy here. If you don't know it, Google it. I mean, I can teach you. I'm more than happy to teach you. But there are things that you also need to be able to find it. Like it's already in Google and probably it's already updated. So you don't have to take the time and energy on documenting that. That's why I stopped using and creating so many tutorials. Like it was taking so much time. And but the moment I share it, probably has already, like it has to have a new update. So it was really also, I hated it. So Now I try to identify for companies, well, here you have this page that has all the tutorials on Shopify or MailChimp or whichever technology you're using. And they're probably well done, so it's even better. After I do this, what I do is I connect them. So let me go back to this part. You're seeing right now just the list of the tasks. But what I do, if I use a text expander to write it out, you're going to see it in the details of the task. And if I have to complement with visuals, what I will do is I will take this scribe how, like has a link very similar to Loom. So I will paste it in the description of the task. And it's easy for people to access to that. That's why I love Asana. It connects with everything. And I hope at some point it connects with Scribe How. This is something that I like. I'm filling the inbox of Scribe How in Twitter, asking for some sort of integration with Asana, because with Google Drive, what I like now, and that's I believe that's the tutorial that I shared in the group last week, is how you can connect it now with your documents. So, and that's why I say creating videos in Loom is becoming so stressful because of that. So, and that's why I'm using now this tool. The way that I teach, and many of you are going to find new tutorials from me on this, the way that I teach on how to attach documents in Asana, it changed. 2 weeks ago, it changed. The way that I teach is no longer applicable because now there's a better way of doing it. So imagine having to go through a 15 minutes, I believe it was like 15 minutes, how to work with attachments in Asana, just to identify the part that I say, okay, this is how you do it, cut that part and not the part on how to do it. And imagine yourself doing that for a process you have to do. It will be stressful, right? So that's why I use now this tool, which is even better. And that's why I want to talk on the last part, misconceptions around the creation of SOPs. Because it's what I have seen, I will say it again, think on systems before processes and people. First, your system. Then what are the processes that are a part of that system? Client onboarding. You may have 3 processes that are a part of your system for client onboarding, or 6 processes. And then the people that will help you complete those processes and the tasks and everything involved on that. And the reason why I say that is, remember I told you I was going to ask you this question, I will always ask it. If you leave your business or your work today for whichever reason, and you cannot come back, what will break? What will happen? Okay? To give an example, when I quit on March 2nd, 2015, I left. And I knew that nothing was going to happen for them because everything that I did in my role was documented. So I left the company, I left my resignation letter. I said, I'm not coming back again, even though they wanted me to go back. I say no. And they knew there was a library and at that point, I wasn't using Asana. I started using Asana like a month after I learned about the use of Asana, okay? But everything was documented. So there was like, I knew nothing wrong was going to happen because they have everything organized and documented for what I did. So everyone else was able to take on the role that I was doing. So that's why I want you to start thinking on your system and what are the things that might break if you're not able to fulfill the work at some point. That's what you need to start documenting to give clarity to your work, to your team members, to your goals, to everything. If you're not clear on that, then something is definitely wrong. And with it, you get that with documentation of your processes. I think I have said this word so much today, I don't know. This is just an idea of how you can start identifying, and that's why I say there's a misconception on how to document processes. And again, unless you're working on this big corporation, and I have nothing against corporations, but unless you're working on this big thing, this big corporation that has to have certification for ISO and this and that, then don't complicate it and create all these big workflows that takes months to do it. I have worked with companies that does that, and it's so complicated, and it takes them like 8 months to build a process, to create an SOP, because they identify all the details or steps. You spend so much time on that, and the time is going by, and you still need to work, and you still need to deliver whatever it is that you need to deliver, and people is waiting on that. So your clients cannot wait 8 months for you to improve a process. They could wait, and you do try and error for a couple of months while you do your entire process documentation. But if you need to get something fast, don't complicate it with all these things. I love all these things, but it creates so much complexity to all of that. You just need to make it simple. You need to learn to get your work done without doing the most, without doing all of this. And with that guide that I told you, I can go back. Let's go back here. With this, you do it. You start today with what you're doing. And if it's not clear, if it's not like something documented, start doing it. What did I do today? I did all these many things. Okay, what was the biggest one, the most important one? And then you say, okay, what is the purpose of that? When did I start? What is the endpoint and the high-level steps? And there you go. And you add it to your documentation library. In 3 weeks from now, maybe there's an improvement on that. You already have it documented. You just go back to that and update very quickly whatever you need to update. Maybe there's a new step that you missed to do, or you have 6 steps and then you simplify it, but it's already documented and you know exactly how to do it. So that's why I say don't think of this right now and try to think more simple. I want that. And that's what I'm doing right now. Like, I cannot tell you how happy I am. Most of you know that I'm going to be finally, I can say that these are vacations where I'm going to take after so many years. And I've been feeling so great this year. I work Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. I don't work on Wednesday, and I don't work on my weekends. Now, I wish, I don't know, from 2006, I learned all of this, so I can say that I need to take my weekends off and I need to take vacations. When I tell you that at that point in 2015, I was getting tired and sick, it's because from the moment I started working, I didn't have vacations, because that's the other part. You cannot take vacations because it's your role, it's your responsibility, you have to get it done. And then I never took vacations. Never. Not even when I got married. I just remember now, going backwards, I went to my honeymoon with my laptop. Who does that? I did it. And I say now, oh my God, I cannot believe it. So no, you are like, I want you to feel great on that. And if you need to take a weekend completely, or 3 days weekend, that you feel okay with that, because it's documented and you can ask for someone else on help. I want that, and I want you to want that. Probably you cannot have like 3 days off of your week, but at least to know that you start at some time and you end at some time, and then you go and rest your night or your evening with your kids, grandkids, whatever you want to do. Even a time for yourself sometimes is needed, okay? So I want you to have that. Whatever time you decide to spend on yourself, to think on that first. Remember what I told you at the beginning. Think on your life first, and then think on your business and your meetings and all of that. It takes time. People will not like it, but they will get used to that. We just need to learn how to say no to some things and then start organizing everything. So I want to know if someone has any questions, because I know that I've been talking and talking and talking. I want to know if anyone has any questions for me to answer. Feel free to open your mic. Was it too much? No? No questions?
I think for me, the only thing I was thinking is, like, for us document, because we do use Asana, and you know what our boards look like.
Yeah. I know.
don't know where we would incorporate that at to do our documentation of like what we do for our days. The only place I can think of is like because like we each have an onboarding when we first start, which is like our practice area. So I don't know if that would be where we would use it, to where we could document our stuff, because everything
Yes.
else is involved with the team. So if
Yes.
I go into a project, I don't want to do it there, because then that can affect everybody else's things on their team. Because like even our Google is it's a shared folder that everybody can go into all the documents and stuff like that. So I guess for me, that would be, I mean, I know with you knowing kind of how our stuff is, maybe you could like let us know where the best place to be to start.
Definitely. Definitely. Just to clarify, I'm working with Tracy and Judy on that. So that's why I say it's so great that they're here. You haven't seen the SOP library that I created for you. So beautiful and so organized.
So
I cannot wait to. It's private right now for that, to avoid confusion. So also on that, when you start when you're starting to document something that you know may affect other team members, and you feel that it's going to create overwhelm, you can start by having it private. Then you do onboarding sessions, and then you make it public before making it public. And then people, oh, what is this? What is this? If I share that with you right now, I know everyone will fill my Asana inbox with questions, okay? So also think on that. I know that I say that it has to be public, but at the beginning, try to keep it private, make sure that it's okay. And when you feel okay, now it's organized, now we're ready to do an onboarding session with the team. You have to include a learning process on this, an onboarding with your team. So we're going to do onboarding sessions, ask questions, answer the questions to the team members, all of that. And now we're ready to share it with them. Okay, and this is for anyone. So in your case, I am the one that is doing it. And I'm doing it in that way. I'm making sure that everything is connected. I know in your case, you have your own onboarding projects. And this is something that I do with other clients as well. They will have onboarding projects for each individual that works in the company, but it's connected with the SOPs library. So if a specific process gets updated in November, everyone will be able to see it from their end. I don't update on the individual project. I'll update it here. And then I create categories. You know that I love custom fields for that. I create categories for their roles. So I will say this process is more important for these roles. Okay. So when there's an update, these roles will get notified, hey, there's an update on this process, you may want to check. Okay, so that's why I love Asana as well, because in those cases I will create like notifications when something is updated, and when it's highly relevant, like I try to keep it public because it's important that everyone knows at some point if they want to learn. But for the highly relevant roles, I will create a category, a custom field for that, so that they're notified, because those are the ones that are most impacted when there's an update in the process, okay? Yep. To clarify, and because I'm going to answer a question that someone asked me on, someone that couldn't join, but they asked me on tech tutorials, and that's why I say tech tutorials is different to SOPs. I gave you the example for things that I do, and I know that now because I have created so many tech tutorials on Asana. We're even changing how we're doing it. And now in October, we're going to grant all of our clients access to our online course in Asana because of that. Because Asana, and that's our case for our service and how we do it. For us, it's easier to create, not in Asana, but apart from Asana, an online course that we can give access to our clients, because Asana is changing so much and updating so much. And I know a few updates that are going to be releasing this month. And it's easy for us to have it in one place, that all our clients have access to that with their own login credentials that go to one by one and give them access to that. So what we do is in their internal SOP library that we create, we connected with the site of where is it in the online course. So if I'm teaching you how to, let's say, save a template, a project template, a year ago it was in a way, and then 6 months ago changed, I just go to my online course, I update it there, but for my client, it's just the same link, and I will just send a notification to everyone, and they will receive that there's an update in that link that they have. So the link is the same, but the content, I don't have, like, I have 20 workspaces in Asana. Imagine going to the 20 workspaces and updating it. So it's very similar to having, let's say, 10 people, 10 onboarding projects you need to update. So it's easy to do it from your library, connected with roles, and then all of them can go directly to their project and see it. So, and there's different way of doing it in Asana. You can connect it with dependencies, with certain custom fields to be notified. There's different ways of doing it. Any other questions? I love that question, by the way. Any other questions? No? I just love so much having you both here. It was really fun. And it's good to see familiar faces, you know, for me. I just mentioned, Cecilia, before you joined, I get nervous in this, specifically in this one, not when I'm working with clients because I feel so great, but I don't know, for some reason, when I'm doing classes, I love teaching, but then I get so nervous. I want to see familiar faces, and it's so great that you take the time to be here. So thank you so much. Thank you, Anna, for being here too. I'm going to send you a DM once the reply is uploaded, probably later today. You're going to receive the reply of this class, the presentation. I will send you the Loom videos that I mentioned with the new updates of Google, Google Docs and Asana, which is really great. And the Loom video that I created on how I use Scribe. So you can also start using it yourself. And sometimes I just do it in that way. I just start doing something, I click on Scribe, and then what I do at the end of the week, I will usually do it on Fridays afternoon. I will go to the 3 or 4 scribes that I created and clean them up. And then there you go, 4 new processes or 4 updates on my processes without complexity. I want you to also do that for yourself. So I will send you that. Thank you so much for being here. I know we're 8 minutes late, so I don't want to take much time from you. Thank you so much, and have a beautiful week.
Thank you.
Bye.